Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest on the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It's remaining fairly unsettled and westerly, with the potential for a lower pressure system to drop in from the north come the end of the weekend into the start of next week, temporarily turning things cold before actually turning things a lot milder, maybe even warmer towards the middle of next week. We'll then have a look at the GFS, GM, ESMWF and the ensembles, looking at the mid to longer range, as yes, it looks warm, perhaps into the middle of next week, maybe even 20 degrees is possible in some areas to avoid precipitation. But after that, the blocking and the low pressure systems that cause that more of a southerly flow reorientate, and what do we see? We see a northerly or northeasterly potentially to end the month. And as in the sort of the 10-day time frame, so it is uncertain, but there definitely are signs, quite significant signs, the end of October could be turning really quite cold. Now, not only will it be very cold for the time of year, but in actual terms it will be quite cold. Again, not cold enough for any widespread snow, no worries about that, but frosts, maybe the odd wintry shower in northern areas, that is what is likely, but that is very cold for the end of October, for the middle month of autumn. So we'll have to see what the models are showing today, but there definitely is, as I said in yesterday's video, a trend towards a colder end of the month after a quite warm middle third of the month. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in description. So to start on the live radar, you can see that it is widely quite dry. We did see a big weather front that pushed through in the south that has spread through overnight, and as I said in yesterday's video, most of it fell overnight, and as of course at midday you can see only just a little bit of remnants across the far south coast. Most areas are pretty dry, and it's not too bad in terms of sunny weather as well today. Quite a lot of sunny weather around, blue skies for many. But you can see towards northern Scotland we do have precipitation pushing in. This is the low that is starting to dive southwards. We are starting to see those lows push southwards, as we'll see on the GFS in a minute. You'll see that the jet stream really sinks southwards, and as you see in the UKV, precipitation does start to drop further southwards over the next 5 days or so. Yes, last night's rain did predominantly be in the south, but it was a little bit of a system in the south, but the main actual track of low pressure systems is going to be pushed much further southwards over the next few days. Now, if you put on the temperatures as of around midday, you can see it's not too bad, especially in the south and east. Some yellows in there, which is around the mid-teens, maybe peaking 16, 17, 18 degrees in the middle of this afternoon. Further northwards and westwards, of course, quite a bit colder, but again, nothing too crazy, as we do have a general Atlantic flow. If you go over to the UKV and have a look at what it's showing over the next 5 days in terms of precipitation and temperature, you can see that rain that spread through in the south and east last night, and then beyond that into Thursday afternoon. So today you can see that precipitation in the north, but you see the low pressure track still far to the north in Scotland. But if we watch it through the rest of Thursday into Friday, you see more low pressure sinking further southwards, more precipitation in the south as the lows start to dive further southwards, and you can see generally quite widespread precipitation for the weekend into Sunday. And you can see that lows now much further southwards entering the UK. Yes, still sort of a southwest and northeast alignment in terms of its movement, but still providing heavier precipitation quite widely there into the start of next week. Now, if we do have a look at the 2-metre temperatures, you can see earlier this morning it's very cold actually in the north, widely mid to low single digits for the south, with that precipitation 12 or 13 degrees. As we head to Thursday afternoon, so today you can see 16, 17 degrees probably by the time this gets released, but further north it's still considerably colder. Into Friday, overnight temperatures will not drop down too low, sort of mid-single digits in the far north, but elsewhere high single digits to low teens really. And into Friday afternoon, you can see not too bad in some areas, but where thicker cloud and precipitation moves through, it could only be 12, 13 degrees or even colder than that. Into Saturday, we do see widely temperatures drop quite low in the north, but in the south, again, 12, 13 degrees. And into Saturday afternoon, 16, 17 in the south, but a lot colder in the north, with cold air sinking southwards as those lows position to our south. And into Sunday, you can see afternoon temperatures 16, 17 degrees, and into Monday as well. Temperatures in the day are not too bad in the south, with the mild air starting to get pumped in. As I said, toward the middle of next week, it's going to start to turn a lot milder in the south, but the north is still cold. You can see that on the 850 HPA temperatures. Look at that, -1 and -2 in the north, which has tried to spread in, but 6, 7, 8 degrees at 850 HPA in the south does try and push in after that. If we now go over to the GFS and see what that is showing over the next couple of weeks, we'll have a look at the big sort of picture view. Now you can see a westerly flow over the next couple of days, but as we head into the weekend, look at those lows tracking much further southwards by Sunday and Monday. Now initially it does pump in some cold air for the north, but eventually look at where the ice bars are coming through. You can see by sort of Tuesday time they're coming from a southerly direction. Look at the upper air temperatures. Look at that, around the 5 to 10 degree isotherms pushing in, really quite warm, and this is where we could see potentially 20 degrees maybe next Wednesday or Thursday with a cut-off low sat to our south. But there is blocking to our north. So this sort of pattern that on sort of anomaly charts you'd think potentially would be cold, but it's because we've got this cut-off low to our south and the high pressure extending across to northern Europe that we actually see a southeasterly, which this time of year is actually quite mild. Now, beyond that, that's where things start to turn interesting. The blocking pushes itself back towards Greenland, and low pressure replaces higher pressure towards Scandinavia and northern Europe, and now follow the isobars. A northerly wind, look at the upper air temperatures, the -5 line is plunging in, look at the potential equivalent temperatures, look at all that cold air flooding into the UK and northern Europe. Now there's a bit of a temporary northerly wind. If you look at the upper air temperatures, it does get cut off quite quickly, but we see another northerly wind push in. When you normally get this sort of blocking, we do see repetitive northerly winds, and to end the run we do go more of a westerly, but remaining on the cool side of the jet, with those low pressure systems trying to push in within, giving us colder air masses. So yeah, very, very interesting seeing that today. Definite trend for a cold end of the month there. Look at that northerly wind direct from the Arctic on the 25th. Look at the potential equivalent temperatures. Look at that, all that cold air flooding in from the north. Again, it is sort of the day 10 to day 14 time frame. It does start to appear at day 10, but it's really that day 10 to day 14 into the last sort of week or so of October, or last 10 days. That's when things really start to get going. So it is uncertain, but we have seen a consistent signal over the last few days, and we're seeing it again today. Look at the temperature deviation. You can see well below average, maybe 4 to 6 degrees, maybe even getting as low as 8 to 10 degrees below average at times. Now if you go over to the GEM, see how that does compare over the next 10 days. Again, a westerly flow at the moment, so that low pressure plunged to our south by Sunday, Monday time. Initially, as I said, a very warm south to southeasterly wind. Again, look at those upper air temperatures. Look at that, 10 degree isotherm pushing in, maybe even the 15 degree isotherm might nudge in. Look at that, 10 degrees above average this time of year. Very warm next Thursday to Friday. But look what happens straight after that into Sunday, plunging into a northerly wind. So Thursday, Friday, we could see 20 degrees in the south. By Sunday, could see snow showers in the north. Incredibly cold conditions, and look at that, flooding in from the north, blocking towards Greenland. This would be pretty sustained. And again, look at the temperature deviation. Look at it going from 10 degrees above average there on Friday morning, all the way to potentially 10 to 12 degrees below average comes Sunday morning. In 48 hours, we see huge temperature changes. So, yeah, ridiculous. And this is why I've said there's going to be massive contrast over the next couple of days. Could be some big weather fronts, big bouts of precipitation, and could be some very, very varying conditions. Could see 20 degrees in the south there, and on Friday, it comes Sunday, could struggle to get much above 5 degrees in Scotland. So, yeah, really, really quite cold. If we do finish by having a look at the ECMWF, see what that is showing over the next 10 days or so. Again, a westerly flow at the moment, a southerly wind pushing in by the next week. Could be quite sustained, some very warm sort of Indian summer type patterns potentially there for a few days. And then as beyond that into day 10, we do see a northerly wind plunge in, and yeah, could go very, very cold there. Not quite as sharp a northerly wind as the other runs are going, but still that sort of pattern for a northerly flow towards the end of the month. Not quite as cold, but still there. If you do finish by having a look at the ensemble members, you can see generally around average over the next 5 days, and then that really big warm period, perhaps even an Indian summer, depending on the upper air temperatures. If it's more around 7, 8, 9, 10 degrees, it will just be generally mild. But if it gets towards 50 degrees 850 HPA, like maybe a quarter to a third of the ensemble members suggest, wouldn't be surprised to be seeing this sort of an Indian summer into mid-20s range. Beyond that, we do drop back towards average, but there's a lot of scatter, but there are some going very cold in the long term, down to the -5 range. Even the operational run does as well. So very interesting seeing that today, but still high precipitation. So regardless of what happens over the next couple of weeks in terms of air masses, there will be quite a bit of cloud and precipitation around at times. And of course, with that very mild air next week, couldn't even rule out some heavy thundery showers pushing in as well, with temperature contrasts. Now, if we do have a look at the 2-meter temperatures for that as well, you can see perhaps into around the 20th to 23rd of October, we could see days where it gets widely into the high teens, maybe even touching on 20 degrees. Very warm indeed. And yeah, it could be very interesting seeing that. I do suspect that these ensembles won't have it sort of nailed down yet, because it all depends on cloud precipitation, especially this time of year. But we could see a real Indian summer type pattern potentially next week. Now, if we finish, we'll have a look at the ECM WF ensembles just to see what they're showing over the next couple of weeks. You can see generally over the next 5 days around average, but then dropping well above average, that Indian summer potentially type pattern, and then dropping towards average from around the 22nd, 23rd onwards. And you can see quite a few going below average, but still some above average. So yeah, still uncertain, but that is because it is longer range. But we are seeing consistent signals, so I wouldn't be surprised for it to be ending quite cold. But you can see generally, though, very warm middle of the month. So yeah, proper warm conditions coming potentially next week, but you can see will be accompanied by precipitation. So yeah, real wild conditions potentially coming up in the next couple of weeks. No stormy weather or anything, but very warm weather next week with some potentially very heavy rain, and then flipping within a couple of days to some very cold weather as well. But we'll have to see what happens. For the time being, make sure you keep an eye on the forecast. It will be flip-flopping quite a lot. You could be out in t-shirt and shorts next week, and then hats and gloves a few days later. So make sure you do keep up to date with the forecast, and I'll keep you updated here as well. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.